fast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to row-wide facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, where we challenge conventional dairy industry thinking with bold insights that boost your bottom line. I'm your host, Andrew, and today we're diving into one of the most expensive mistakes plaguing dairy operations across North America. Here's a question that should keep every dairy operator awake at night. Why are you still paying to mutilate calves when you could eliminate dehorning forever in just one generation? If you think gradual polled adoption is the smart, progressive approach, prepare to have your assumptions shattered. Our latest analysis reveals that half-polled herds are actually bleeding money faster than fully horned operations. We're talking about a $23 per head disadvantage that compounds every single year. In the next few minutes, you'll discover why partial polled adoption delivers the worst possible return on investment, how elite polled genetics now outperform horned counterparts, and the specific 90-day action plan that can transform your entire operation. We'll expose the transition trap that's costing producers thousands annually and reveal why European breeders are racing towards 67% polled adoption by 2025. This isn't theory, it's hard economics backed by real farm data. Let's dive in.
Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine for a second you're walking through your barn. You see your calves, healthy and growing, maybe some you've just dehorned or are about to. It feels like a necessary task, right?
Right, something you've always done maybe, part of the routine.
Exactly. But what if that standard practice, something as fundamental as dehorning, is actually a significant drain on your operation's profitability? We're talking about it potentially costing you far more than you've ever calculated. And what if, right now, there was a clear, immediate path to eliminate that cost entirely, forever?
It's a tough question to face, isn't it? Especially because, as the Bullvine article we're diving into points out, many producers feel like they're already making progress, you know?
Yeah, I can see that.
They've got some polled animals in the herd, maybe they're using some polled genetics, they think, okay, we're moving in the right direction.
Making steps.
Exactly. But this article, the one titled Profit from Polled and Dehorning Forever, it really challenges that comfortable notion head on. And it does it with some pretty compelling and frankly surprising data.
Absolutely. And that's what this deep dive is really laser focused on, the economics of polled genetics, specifically exploring the core argument of this Bullvine article that committing to 100% polled genetics might be dramatically significantly more profitable than continuing down that path of gradual partial adoption.
Yeah, that's our mission here today. We want to really pull apart the specific arguments, the numbers, the insights presented in this article. We want to understand why they're making such strong claims about this economic shift towards polled.
And most importantly,
translate what that actually means for you listening right now, for your day-to-day operations, your long-term balance sheet, and, your competitive edge in the market.
And the article doesn't pull any punches right from the start, does it? It makes this really striking claim that 100% polled herds outperform partial adoption by a measurable $23 per head annually.
$23, that's not insignificant.
Not at all. And then it hits you with that really direct question. Why are you still paying to mutilate horned calves when you could eliminate the practice entirely in just one generation? It's definitely designed to make you stop and think.
It is. And that question directly addresses that feeling you mentioned earlier, the producer who feels they're already progressing because they have some polled animals.
Right.
The article basically argues that this middle ground, this partially polled state, is actually the most financially damaging position to be in right now.
Financially damaging, that's strong.
Well, they call it financially destructive in the current market reality where margins are thin and let's face it, every dollar of operational efficiency is absolutely critical. You're essentially paying for the solution and keeping half the problem.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of the problem itself then. According to the Bovine article, why does dehorning still hurt and cost producers so much? And why is that cost so often, underestimated? What are we missing?
That's really where they start building their case. The fundamental issue, as they see it, is that most producers only look at the most obvious, immediate expenses when thinking about dehorning.
Like the paste or the iron.
Exactly. They dramatically underestimate the true cost because they focus on the price of the paste or maybe the gas for the iron. But the real expense, the article argues, is much, much deeper than that.
So it's more than just the sticker price of the tool.
Oh, way more. Let's break down the direct costs they talk about first. The article provides a range, noting that direct dehorning costs can swing anywhere from, say, $6 to a pretty staggering $25 per head.
Wow, that's a big range.
It is. It depends on the method, calf age, who's doing it, all that. But the article reports that the average most operations are seeing, it falls somewhere around $12 to $13 per calf.
Okay, $12 to $13 per calf. Even that average, well, it adds up pretty quickly across a herd, doesn't it?
It really does. And to make it concrete, they give a specific example from a Pennsylvania producer, Reed Hoover. He reported his direct costs were $10 per head on young calves. Straightforward enough.
$10.
But if calves get older, maybe you miss them initially, or you're managing a larger group batching them, that cost jumps up significantly, up to $20 per head for those older ones.
Double the cost just from waiting a bit longer.
Yeah, so timing and management play a role even in just the direct cost itself.
And the article then takes this further, right? It combined these expenses to get a more complete sort of all-in picture.
Yes, exactly. They factor in everything. It's not just the cost of the dehorning method itself, the paste, the cautery irons, maybe anesthetics, things like that.
Right.
It's also potential medical care needed if there are complications. It's any rare but, potentially devastating death loss related to the procedure. And critically, it includes the labor involved, your time, your staff's time.
Right, the labor component, often forgotten.
Totally. So when you add up all those components, supplies, medical, mortality risk, labor, the article calculates the combined direct expenses reach approximately $17.36 per head.
$17.36.
Yeah. And this $17.36 figure, it's presented as the baseline cost many operations are incurring for each calf they have to dehorn.
Whoa. Okay, $17.36 per calf, just for the direct stuff. That's already, I bet, higher than many producers probably estimate just looking at the tube of paste or whatever.
Absolutely. And this is where the article says it gets even, worse, because that $17.36 is only the start. Those figures don't even account for the hidden costs.
Ah, the hidden costs.
Yeah, the ones that are less obvious but are constantly sort of gnawing away at your farm's efficiency and profitability. These are the insidious costs, as they put it.
Okay, insidious costs. Let's unpack those. What are the main hidden costs the article points to?
Well, first and foremost, complications and the need for additional treatment. The article highlights that dehorned calves are simply more likely to need follow-up treatment.
Makes sense. Infections, poor healing.
Right. Issues ranging from infections to improper healing. They cite a range saying 1% to maybe 8% of dehorned calves require some kind of additional care. Now, compare that to naturally polled animals.
Okay.
For polled animals, the likelihood of needing treatment for any horn-related issue is dramatically lower, like just 1% to 3%.
So a much smaller window for problem.
Exactly. That difference in needing medical intervention, the cost of the drugs, maybe vet time, the labor to handle that calf again, it really adds up across a calf crop. You're not just paying for the procedure. You're paying a higher likelihood of ongoing medical bills for those specific calves.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What else falls under these hidden costs?
And they bring in bruising losses, which I think many dairy producers might kind of overlook.
Yeah, maybe think of it more as a beef industry issue.
Possibly. The article references data from the North American beef industry, pointing out a staggering $35 million annually is lost just because of bruising on carcasses caused by horned cattle jostling and injuring each other.
$35 million. Wow.
It's a huge number. And while that's an industry-wide figure, the article converts it to a per-head figure directly related to horns. $1.90 per head.
$1.90 per head. Across the entire industry.
Yeah.
How does that actually impact a dairy operation, though?
Well, it impacts the entire value chain, right? While you might not see a line item for bruising on your milk check, this cost is absorbed somewhere in the system.
Okay.
And for operations that sell surplus animals, whether that's feeder calves or cull cows, it absolutely affects their value. A horned animal is statistically more likely to cause bruising to itself or others during transport or handling.
So it can ding the price you get for those animals.
It can impact its market value or even the value of others it's transported with. It's part of that hidden inefficiency burden that comes with having horns in the mix.
Okay, so we've got potential medical complications, bruising losses. What else is hidden?
Delayed growth. This is another big one that's maybe hard to put a simple dollar figure on immediately, but the impact is real. The article makes the point pretty logically that dehorning is a traumatic procedure.
Sure, causes pain and stress.
Exactly. Calves experience pain and stress as they recover. And this trauma, this recovery period, it causes delayed growth. They just don't gain as well for a period.
So they're literally set back developmentally just as you're trying to push them forward towards breeding age and entering the milking string.
Precisely. And what are you doing during that recovery period? You're still feeding them, right? Still housing them, still providing care.
Yeah, the meter's still running.
The meter's still running. You're paying for feed and labor while their growth trajectory has slowed down because they're recovering from the procedure you paid to do. And this delayed development, it has a domino effect. It impacts when they reach breeding weight, when they calve in, and ultimately their total lifetime productivity.
Yeah.
Their contribution to milk yield and components over their whole career in your herd.
So it's a compounding drain on their efficiency.
And therefore your operations efficiency. That's exactly right. The article uses a really perfect analogy for this whole situation. It's like running your milking system with a persistent vacuum leak.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a catastrophic failure that stops everything, but it's this constant insidious drain on performance and efficiency. You might not immediately notice it on a daily basis, but over time it adds up significantly. It reduces your overall operational output for the same input.
And it really hit on the scale of this. The article applies that $17.36 baseline direct cost to a typical operation size, right?
Yes, exactly. They use the example of a 500 cow operation. Assuming, fairly typical year-round calving, that $17.36 per head baseline cost for dehorning alone adds up to over $8,600 annually.
Over $8,600 a year.
Just for the direct procedure and the immediate associated costs. And remember, that's before you even start trying to factor in any of those productivity losses from stressed calves or the time and labor inefficiencies when your team has to handle horned animals versus polled ones, or those other hidden costs like bruising potential.
Wow. It makes the financial scale of this vacuum leak, as you called it, much clearer. Over $8,600 a year just for the act of dehorning itself. Minimum.
Well, minimum. For a 500 cow herd, that's real money.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so the costs of dehorning are significant, clearly, and often underestimated. But the article makes a really strong point, maybe even a controversial one, that the worst situation isn't even being fully horned anymore. It's being partially polled. They call it the half-polled trap. Why on earth is that the case?
This is where the article really pivots to its central and, maybe controversial argument. It claims that being in this partially polled state, which, like we said, many producers might feel good about, like it's a step towards polled, actually creates the most financially detrimental scenario.
Worse than just having horned animals and dehorning them.
That's the argument. That you're trying to do the right thing by adding some polled genetics, but you actually end up in the worst possible economic position because of it.
How is it the worst? What's the economic double whammy they describe for a partially polled herd?
You're essentially getting hit from both sides, right? Doubling down on your inefficiency costs in a way. First, you've likely made an investment in polled genetics. You're probably paying premium prices for polled semen, or maybe you've purchased some polled animals at a higher price.
Right, you've put money into the solution side.
You've put money into the solution. But second, and this is the trap part, you are still shouldering approximately 50% of those traditional dehorning costs we just calculated. If that baseline cost is $17.36 per head, well, you're still paying something very close to that amount, but now it's applied to about half of your calf crop every year.
Okay, wait. So you've paid extra for the polled genetics, and you're still paying thousands of dollars a year to dehorn roughly half your calves.
Exactly. You've paid for the technology, the upgrade, the supposed solution, but you haven't actually eliminated the costs and the inefficiencies of the old system. The article uses another brilliant analogy here. It's like deciding to upgrade to a fancy new automated milking system,
Okay.
but then you keep running your old parallel parlor right alongside it.
Yeah, okay, that makes no sense.
Right. You've paid for the premium state-of-the-art technology that's designed for efficiency, but you haven't gotten rid of the labor, the energy costs, the maintenance, and the fundamental inefficiencies of the old system. You're just supporting two systems instead of fully benefiting from the better one.
And this isn't just like bad planning necessarily. It's driven by the genetics itself, if you're not careful, right? The article brings up the genetic reality of heterozygous offspring.
This is absolutely key to understanding why you get stuck in this trap. Remember, your basic genetics, polled, which we use P for, is dominant over horned, little p. An animal that is heterozygous polled, meaning it has the genotype PP, carries one polled gene and one horned gene.
Okay, PPP.
Now, if you breed that PE animal, maybe it's a cow or maybe it's the bull you're using, to a horned animal, which is always PP, well, basic Mendelian genetics tells you about half of the offspring will inherit the big P gene, resulting in PT, so they'll be polled.
And the other half?
And about half will inherit only the little P genes, resulting in PP, so they'll be horned.
So even if you have polled cows or you're using polled bulls that are only heterozygous, PP, you are genetically guaranteed to keep producing a significant portion of horned calves. You're locked in.
Precisely. That genetic reality locks you into needing to dehorn roughly half of your calf crop indefinitely, unless you make a drastic change in your breeding strategy towards homozygous polled.
So you're still dealing with all those costs we talked about. The labor, the stress, the potential complications, the delayed growth.
But only for half your calves, despite having already invested maybe significantly in polled genetics. It's really the definition of perpetuated inefficiency.
It sounds like you're just perpetually stuck in transition, like you never actually get there.
The article connects this exact scenario to what it terms a transition trap, or being stuck in evaluation mode.
Evaluation mode.
Yeah, it's like those producers who perpetually trial and test new precision agriculture technologies. Maybe they try out some automated calf feeders. Maybe they use a few activity monitors here and there, but they never fully commit. They never fully integrate the data, never eliminate the old manual systems entirely.
So they're always kind of testing, but never reaping the full reward.
Exactly. They stay in this state of perpetual evaluation, incurring the cost of the new technology without achieving the full efficiency gains because they haven't gotten rid of the old ways. The article argues the half-polled herd is exactly that situation for genetics and dehorning.
So the message is pretty stark then. Being partially polled isn't some cost-effective transition period. It's actually a financially draining state where you bear the costs of both the past and the future without fully benefiting from either one.
That's the powerful argument the article makes. It basically says this middle ground is the absolute most expensive place to be in modern dairy farming.
All right, wow. So if this gradual half-in, half-out approach is, as the article puts it, a trap, what do they propose as the real solution? They talk about complete polled transformation, potentially even in a single generation. How does that work?
This is where they really offer the alternative path. And
Right.
they position it as not just, a different way, but the only economically rational way forward in their view. A rapid, decisive, complete transformation of the herd's horn status.
And they highlight something unique about polledness itself that makes this rapid shift possible, unlike trying to improve, say, complex health traits.
Yeah, this is a really key point about the genetics here. Polledness, because it's controlled by a single dominant gene primarily, offers an almost unprecedented opportunity for rapid phenotypic change in dairy genetics.
Phenotypic meaning the physical trait, the lack of horns.
Correct. You can achieve a near-complete transformation in the horn status of your calves within a single breeding cycle, basically, by using the right sires. Unlike, say, milk components or disease resistance traits that are governed by many genes or have lower heritability traits that take generations of careful selection to see significant shifts across the whole herd.
Takes a long time.
Takes a long time. Polledness offers this potential for dramatic, immediate change capability using homozygous polled, that's PP sires.
Okay, homozygous polled. That's the magic phrase, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll definitely dig into that distinction more, but first, what does this immediate complete transformation mean for those costs we just laid out? That $17.36 and all the hidden stuff?
It means immediate total cost elimination for dehorning. Simple as that. That $17.36 per head in direct savings we discussed,
Yeah.
that savings is triggered instantly for every single calf born once you commit to using only homozygous polled PP sires for all your planned breedings.
Every single.
Every single one. Going back to that 500 cow operation example, that's over $8,600 in annual savings that hits your bottom line immediately, year after year after year, just from eliminating the act of dehorning entirely.
So the savings aren't gradual. They're pretty much all or nothing once you make that full switch to PP sires.
Okay, but what about performance? That's always been the hang-up, right? For years, the perception was you had to sacrifice production or type to get polled animals. Does the article tackle that old chestnut?
It absolutely does. And it really frames that perception as outdated, a relic of a time when polled genetics were, frankly, less developed. The article presents data that directly contradicts this idea that polled genetics automatically compromise performance.
What kind of data?
It said specific Arizona herd data, pretty large scale, showing that polled cows in that study actually produce slightly more milk daily compared to their horned counterparts. The numbers were 66.5 kilograms versus 65.9 kilograms daily.
Okay, 0.6 kilograms difference. It's not a massive amount daily. No, not massive, but like you said earlier, in a tight market, every little bit helps, right? Especially when you multiply it across a whole herd over a lactation.
True. And the article mentions other benefits too. Indirect ones.
Yeah, indirect benefits as well. Things like animal handling. Naturally polled cattle are generally calmer, easier to handle, less stress on them, less stress on your team.
Which could impact health.
Exactly. This reduced stress and improved handling can contribute to better overall animal health and potentially even improved milk quality parameters. The article mentions operations reporting cows moving through the barn easier, less fighting at the feed bunk, and more efficient use of space in freestall barns when you don't have to worry about horns taking up space or causing injuries.
Okay, that makes sense. Beyond just the daily milk weight, what about overall genetic merit? Are the top polled animals today genuinely competitive with the top horned animals in terms of indexes like Net Merit or TPI?
The article is very, very clear on this point. Yes, they absolutely are. It provides data showing that the top homozygous polled sires available today average an impressive $1,108 in net merit.
Over $1,100 net merit average for the top PP bulls. That's strong.
It's very strong. It also compares the difference in another index, herd health profit dollars, between the top horned and top polled NSGN sires, stating the difference is less than $100.
Less than $100 difference on that specific index.
Yeah, and the article basically argues this difference is, quote, negligible when you compare it to the significant guaranteed operational benefits and cost savings you get from eliminating dehorning across your entire herd.
So the genetic gap, if it ever truly existed at those elite levels, has essentially closed, according to this analysis.
That's the article's strong assertion, and it seems backed by the current sire evaluation data, and they don't just talk averages, they list specific examples of these top PP sires that are ranking right alongside the best horned bulls. Names like Luster-P, Banjo-P, and Monument-P.
And these aren't like niche bulls just for polled breeders.
Not at all. The article points out they are consistently appearing on the top 100 TPI proven sire list. These are mainstream, high-impact sires.
Okay, this all seems to really hinge on understanding that critical genetic distinction you brought up earlier. The difference between just being polled and being homozygous polled. Can you break that down again?
Yeah, this is the absolute core concept for achieving that single-generation transformation the article advocates for. It's crucial. As we discussed briefly, an animal that's just generally called polled could be heterozygous carrying that PP genotype.
One polled gene, one horned gene.
Right. And that PP animal, if bred to a horned animal, will still produce roughly 50% horned offspring. You're stuck in that loop.
Okay.
But a homozygous polled animal genotype, PP, carries 2 copies of the dominant polled gene. Both alleles are for polledness.
PP, 2 big Ps.
Exactly. And this genetic composition, having 2 copies of the polled gene, means that PP animal will guarantee 100% hornless offspring every single time, regardless of whether the mate is horned or even heterozygous polled PP. They can only pass on a P gene.
Okay, that makes perfect sense now. 2 copies of the polled gene means they only pass on a polled gene, so the calf always gets at least 1 P, making it polled.
Exactly right. And that genetic certainty is the magic key here. That PP genotype is what allows you to make the switch immediately and completely eliminate dehorning procedures permanently. And as the article details later on, it also unlocks some really significant strategic breeding opportunities that just aren't possible if you're stuck with a mixed or partially polled herd.
So the solution is clear then, according to the Bovine article. It's a rapid, decisive move to 100% polled offspring by exclusively using homozygous polled PP sires. This immediately saves you that $17.36 per calf, gets rid of the hidden costs, and allows you to use elite genetics without compromise.
That's the fundamental argument, yes. Presented as a pragmatic, financially smart decision based on the current state of genetics, technology, and the market.
Let's dive deeper into that genetic side then. The article talks about a genetic revolution and some pretty exciting strategic breeding opportunities this 100% polled commitment unlocks.
Yeah.
It argues pretty forcefully that the whole idea of making a genetic sacrifice to go polled is basically a myth now.
He uses really strong language here, yeah, stating that the historical argument against adopting polled genetics, the idea that you had to give up genetic merit or compromise on production or settle for lower type, that argument has definitively collapsed.
Okay. And they use a powerful piece of evidence to prove that point, right?
I do. The success of elite polled sires like Cherry-Lily Luster-P is their prime example.
Luster-P, he's been huge.
Absolutely huge. The article highlights that Luster-P has sold over 901,300 doses globally. Just think about that number for a second. Over 900,000 doses.
Incredible.
He's become the world's first polled millionaire sire, purely based on semen sales. And the article emphasizes that his massive success and global popularity are not, despite him being polled, but arguably because he combines that highly desired hornless trait with exceptional, truly elite performance metrics across the board. Net merit, TPI, type, health traits, the whole package.
So polledness isn't a handicap anymore. It's actually becoming a feature that makes elite genetics even more valuable in today's market.
That's precisely the article's point, and it attributes much of this rapid advancement we've seen in polled genetics to technological breakthroughs, particularly the advent of genomic evaluations back in 2009.
Right. Genomics changed everything in dairy breeding. How did it have such a big impact specifically on polled genetics?
Well, genomics allowed breeders to identify superior polled animals, especially young bulls and heifers, much, much earlier and with much higher accuracy than ever before possible.
Compared to waiting for progeny testing.
Exactly. Before genomics, breeders relied heavily on pedigree information and then waiting years for progeny testing results to prove a bull's worth and to confirm his polled status reliably. With genomics, suddenly you could get a highly reliable estimate of an animal's total genetic merit and its polled status, whether it was PP, or PP, from just a tissue sample taken from a young calf.
Game changer.
Total game changer. This ability to quickly identify and select the truly elite polled individuals, both male and female, at a young age dramatically compressed generation intervals. It just massively accelerated the rate of genetic progress within the polled lines.
And genomic testing for polled status itself is very accurate now, isn't it?
Extremely accurate. The article mentions the current genomic testing capability for heifer calves has a remarkable 99% accuracy in confirming polled status, PP, or PP. That level of certainty allows you, as a producer, to make breeding and management decisions with very high confidence right when that calf is still very young.
Now, this high accuracy and the increasing availability of these elite PP animals leads to a strategic advantage the article says most producers might be missing out on. What's that?
This is a really insightful point they make, I think. Once your herd becomes homozygous polled, meaning you have PP females, or even if you just have some individual PP females, you unlock a unique strategic breeding opportunity.
Okay.
You can confidently outcross those PP females with the absolute elite horned bulls in the breed. We're talking the highest ranking, top of the charts bulls, regardless of whether they carry the polled gene or not.
So use the very best bull, period, even if he's horned.
Yes. And still guarantee 100% hornless offspring from that mating.
Wait, really? So you can tap into the very best genetics available anywhere in the breed, even if they happen to be in horned bulls, without ever bringing horns back into your herd phenotypically. That seems like you're genuinely getting the best of both worlds there.
That's precisely the strategic advantage the article highlights. It describes this as a sophisticated breeding strategy that allows you to maximize both polledness and overall genetic advancement simultaneously. You're no longer limited to only the pool and polled bulls when you want to introduce top genetics from outside lines. Your PP females give you the power to tap into the entire breed's elite genetic pool while locking in that desirable hornless trait in the calves.
That's clever.
It is. They compare it to how progressive operations are using detailed activity monitoring data, not just for basic heat detection anymore, but to pinpoint their absolute top genetic cows and optimize breeding timing specifically for those elite individuals. individuals. It's about leveraging technology and genetic strategy to maximize gain on your most valuable animals.
And this outcrossing strategy also directly addresses a historical concern that sometimes comes up with polled populations, the issue of genetic diversity and potential inbreeding down the line.
Yes, exactly. The article positions this outcrossing strategy as the direct answer to those historical concerns about, perhaps, a limited genetic diversity within polled lines in the past. By being able to cross your PP females with diverse, elite horned bulls from completely different bloodlines, you are actively introducing new genetics and broadening the diversity base of your polled herd while still guaranteeing every calf born is polled.
Okay, but is there already decent diversity within the polled population itself, even before you start thinking about outcrossing like that?
The article assures us there is, and it's definitely growing. It specifically mentions, as an example, that 3 commonly available, distantly related PP bulls currently show no common sires for at least 3 generations back.
So unrelated options exist.
Exactly. This, the article states, is proof that genetic diversity solutions are being actively developed and do exist within the homozygous polled lines being offered by the major AI companies today. You're not just reliant on one source or one family of PP genetics. There are multiple diverse options becoming available.
And why is this point about avoiding inbreeding particularly important for producers who are really focused on longevity and lifetime production?
Well, because inbreeding depression can negatively impact crucial traits like health, fertility, and just overall vigor, things that are absolutely critical for a cow's longevity and profitability in the herd.
Right. You want cows that last.
You want cows that last multiple lactations and contribute consistently over their lifetime. So, managing inbreeding is key. The article argues that by being able to either use diverse PP sires or strategically outcross your PP females to diverse elite horn sires, you can maintain elite genetic progress while actively managing those inbreeding risks. That's fundamental for building a profitable, long-lasting herd, not just one focused on first lactation performance.
So the whole genetic landscape for polled animals has completely shifted then. It's really not about making a sacrifice anymore. It's about leveraging elite genetics strategically to gain a valuable physical trait advantage, plus all the cost savings.
That's the powerful shift the article describes, yeah. Driven by technology like genomics and the increasing availability of these top-tier PP sires.
Okay, but the economic argument isn't just about saving costs either, is it? The Bovine article also digs into the other side of the coin, capturing premium markets and riding what seems like a growing wave of global momentum towards polled genetics.
Correct. The article argues that the financial benefits extend well beyond just eliminating that dehorning bill, important as that is. They move into tangible opportunities for increased revenue and better market access.
And this seems to be partly driven by consumer demand and what the big buyers are looking for now.
Absolutely. This is a crucial market signal they really highlight. The article points out that Meiji dairy buyers, and they list some big recognizable names like Nestle, General Mills, Dunkin' brands, are increasingly prioritizing suppliers who can demonstrate humane animal treatment practices.
Makes sense. Consumers care more about that.
They do. And the article states unequivocally that this trend is creating a clear, tangible market pull for operations raising naturally polled cattle.
And this isn't just some potential future possibility like maybe someday. It's happening now.
That's what the article strongly emphasizes. These are current market realities. Being able to confidently tell a buyer, our herd is 100% naturally hornless, we don't dehorn any animals, that's becoming a real marketing advantage right now.
And the 100% polled designation itself, just having that label, is becoming valuable in the livestock markets.
The article argues it absolutely is. It's functioning kind of like a premium attribute, similar to how other genetic certifications or specific trait verifications can add value to animals. It provides a clear, easily marketable characteristic that certain buyers actively value and may pay more for.
What kind of sales streams are we talking about?
The article details several. Bred heifers, fresh cows, feeder calves, and even service bulls. Being able to market these animals explicitly as naturally polled, especially homozygous polled, can create additional revenue streams that operations still dealing with horned animals might struggle to access, or at least not get the same premium for.
Okay, that covers the animal sales side. What about actual milk market premiums? Are those happening yet for milk from polled herds?
The article discusses the trajectory towards emerging milk market premiums for products originating specifically from naturally polled herds. Now, it acknowledges these are still developing, right? It's not widespread yet.
Okay.
But the path seems clear, according to the article, driven by that underlying consumer demand for products perceived as more humanely produced. The writing is on the wall, they suggest, that milk from naturally hornless herds is likely to command premiums in the future as these programs develop.
So by going 100% polled, you're potentially creating multiple profit centers. You're saving significant costs from stopping dehorning, you're potentially getting enhanced value for animals you sell, and you're positioning yourself for potential future premiums on your milk.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And in an industry with historically tight margins, like dairy, diversifying and enhancing your revenue streams from a single genetic decision, like eliminating horns, is a pretty significant advantage. It positions your operation to capture value at multiple points in the chain.
The article also provides what it calls a global market reality check, showing this isn't just a North American trend or discussion.
Oh, far from it. The article presents some really eye-opening data on the European trend. It projects that nearly 67%, two-thirds of bulls used there will be polled by 2025.
67% by next year. Wow.
Yeah, think about that. Two-thirds of the bulls used in major European dairy countries will be polled very, very soon. That's massive international momentum.
And compare that to the North American figure. The article cited, what was it, just 13% polled bull usage back in the 2019 data they used. That's a huge, huge difference in adoption rate.
It is a massive difference, and the article used this comparison to really show how much faster other major dairy regions are moving on this. It also mentions places like New Zealand, where adoption is heavily influenced by export market requirements that favor polled, and Australia, where polled adoption is growing, partly for heat stress tolerance benefits, but also for general efficiency.
So what's the main takeaway for producers here from looking at these global patterns?
The article argues forcefully that these global adoption trends signal pretty clearly that polled genetics aren't just some niche market or a passing fad. They are rapidly becoming the industry standard worldwide.
The standard, not the exception.
Exactly. And operations that recognize this shift and embrace it early stand to gain a significant first-mover advantage. Not just in accessing those developing premium markets we talked about, but also in getting ahead on the genetic development curve itself, as the elite polled lines continue their rapid advancement globally.
So it's not just being driven by animal welfare concerns or avoiding a painful task anymore. Internationally, it's clearly being seen and adopted as a fundamental competitive advantage.
That's exactly the framing the article uses. The international dairy community, often driven maybe more strongly by regulatory pressures and consumer demands than here, has already embraced polled genetics as a key competitive advantage for their operations moving forward.
Okay, to make all of this feel even more real and achievable, the Bovine article features some real-world success stories. Operations that are already doing this, leading the way.
Yeah, they highlight several farms that really demonstrate this isn't just theory written in an article. It's a proven, successful, long-term strategy out on actual dairies. The first one they feature is Burkett Falls Farm in Pennsylvania.
Burkett Falls. What's special about their story?
They really represent long-term commitment and viability. The article calls them 6 decades of polled excellence. They've been dedicated to breeding polled Holsteins for over 60 years.
60 years. That's incredible dedication.
It really is. They've consistently maintained over 90% polled animals in their herd, with a significant portion, around 35%, being homozygous polled.
What's been their driving philosophy behind that long commitment?
The article includes a great quote from John Burkett outlining their consistent philosophy over that time. He says, "We want to breed a cow that classifies EX, produces 200,000 pounds and 90,000 kilograms of component-rich milk, and is polled."
Simple, balanced, and includes polled right there.
Exactly. He continues, "This philosophy has remained the same for a long time. We have never pursued the trend of the month. It just shows their focus has always been on a balanced, highly functional, long-lasting cow that also happens to be polled. Polledness is just an integrated trait in their overall pursuit of breeding excellence."
And their influence has been truly global.
It's actually remarkable. The article states that over that two-thirds number of polled Holsteins worldwide trace their genetics back somehow to Burkett Falls bloodlines. It provides really compelling real-world proof that committed polled breeding does not require sacrificing longevity, production, or type excellence. They've proven it's possible for decades.
Okay, who else do they feature as a success story?
They highlight Dehorning Holsteins, run by Andrew Morton. His operation serves as a great example of successfully integrating polled genetics into already high-performing, established cow families without disrupting that existing performance base.
How do they manage that integration?
They strategically brought in the polled gene through a specific bull named OCD eraser ZipIt-P, and this move, the article explains, has led to the production of popular high-ranking AI sires coming out of their program while they simultaneously maintained elite production and type within their core cow families.
Now, what's Andrew Martin's view on this now?
He's quoted very simply but powerfully, "Polled is the way of the future." Clear conviction there. The article describes their breeding focus as developing balanced, easy-to-handle cows with strong udders. Again, you see that theme of integrating polledness into a program focused on overall functional excellence and usability.
And they use a specific cow from Dehorning as an example, right? Dehorning Supershot Leisure.
Yes, she's a fantastic illustration of their success. Dehorning Supershot Leisure is classified EX92 with a 94-point udder, demonstrating truly elite type and functionality.
94 udder, wow.
Yeah, and she produced over 90,000 kilograms, that's nearly 200,000 pounds, in her lifetime, showing excellent production and longevity. And the key part, she is the great random of several popular Dehorning sires that carry the polled gene, including homozygous polled bulls like Lehigh PP and Logic PP, plus another popular one, Latent P. She really shows you can have it all. Elite type, massive production longevity, and successfully integrate polled genetics right into the heart of the family.
That's a powerful example. And the final one they mentioned was North Pole Genetics.
Right. This is a more recent example, but equally powerful in its message. It's a partnership established just back in 2021. They made a very significant strategic investment by acquiring 5 elite polled cows, and notably, 4 of those 5 were daughters of the globally renowned cow, Calbert Kingboy Miranda EX93.
Oh yeah, Miranda was a huge deal in the show ring and genetically, wasn't she?
Absolutely huge. The article lists some of her major accolades. She was the Global Cow winner in 2021, the Polled Impact Cow in 2022, and even runner-up Red Impact Cow in 2022. So acquiring her polled daughters was a bold move that really underscores a key point the article makes. Polled animals can and are competing at the absolute highest levels of breed excellence, recognition, and importantly, market value worldwide.
So these are pretty diverse examples then. You've got a multi-decade legacy herd, an operation strategically integrating polled into their existing elite lines, and a newer partnership focused specifically on acquiring top-tier polled genetics right from the start.
Exactly. And the article points out the common threads running through all these success stories. A clear, long-term commitment to polled breeding, a consistent focus on overall functional traits in production, in addition to polledness, it's not an either, and the strategic use of the best available genetics, whether that means using top PP sires or acquiring elite polled females. They all treat polledness as an integral, valuable part of their overall breeding program, not just some afterthought or something they dabble in occasionally.
These stories really do reinforce that idea that polled isn't a compromise anymore. It's fully compatible with elite performance and long-term operational success.
And it's being done successfully right now by serious, profitable operations. It's not just a theory.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly and talk about the practical side of things.
Yeah.
The role technology plays in all this and how the bovine article addresses some of the potential implementation challenges or barriers.
Right. The article argues that advanced genetic technologies aren't just enabling the shift towards 100% polled, they are actually amplifying the advantages and making the implementation much more achievable and rapid than it ever could have been before.
And genomic testing comes back into play here again, I assume. It seems foundational.
Absolutely foundational. The article reiterates the immense value of genomic testing for that early, accurate confirmation of polled status, remembering that 99% accuracy figure for heifers.
99%, that's huge for decision-making.
It's invaluable. And this early, precise information, the article points out, integrates perfectly with other precision agriculture technologies that many farms are already using, like activity monitoring systems for heat detection and health monitoring.
How so?
Well, you can confirm the polled status, PP, BP, or PP, of a heifer calf when she's very young using genomics. Then you can use that information combined with her overall genomic proof for production, health, and type, and maybe even her activity data later on, to make highly informed, precise breeding decisions specifically for her future in your herd. It allows for much more targeted management.
And the article also touches on gene editing. That still feels a bit like future tech for most farms.
It does, yeah. But the article mentions it, I think, mainly to highlight the future potential for even faster and more targeted transformation down the road. It discusses technologies like CRISPR-Cas9 and their potential to introduce polled alleles directly into elite horned germplasm with incredible precision.
So essentially adding the polled gene to top cow families that never had it.
That's the potential, yes. Now, the article acknowledges that consumer acceptance and regulatory frameworks around gene editing in livestock are still evolving globally. It's not something you can just go out and do widely today. But it views these technologies as powerful long-term tools that could allow for rapid, highly targeted genetic changes, like introducing polledness into the very best horned cow families almost instantly, bypassing generations of traditional crossing.
And they reference actual research on this being done.
Yes, they briefly cite research demonstrating that gene editing has already been used successfully to introduce the specific polled Celtic variant into Holstein genetics, creating naturally hornless offspring from previously horned lines. It just shows the technology itself is real and applicable, even if commercial use is still down the road.
So the combination of current tools like genomic selection and these potential future technologies like gene editing has really sped up the clock on herd transformation possibilities.
Massively. The article emphasizes that, historically, trying to transition a dairy herd's horn status from mostly horned to mostly polled using only traditional breeding methods would have taken many decades. Generations of work.
A lifetime project, really.
Easily. But with the combination of current genomic selection strategies, the ability to accurately identify PP animals early, and the increasing availability of elite PP sires, that timeline for achieving complete herd transformation phenotypically has been compressed dramatically down to just single generations.
But what about the barriers to actually making the switch right now? Are there common concerns that producers raise that the article addresses? Like, is it really that easy?
It does directly confront the concerns that producers might understandably have. One major one we touched on earlier is genetic diversity, the fear of narrowing the gene pool by focusing only on polled lines. The article reiterates that this is being systematically addressed now by the increased availability of diverse polled sires from multiple different AI companies. You're not reliant on just one or two polled bloodlines anymore, which significantly reduces those potential inbreeding risks compared to, say, 10 or 20 years ago.
And the success stories kind of back that up, showing it's possible to integrate polled without running into diversity problems.
Yes, they do. The article points back to breeding programs like Drüham Holsteins and their success integrating polled genetics into their elite families, like that L family we talked about, which produced top sires like Lei PT and Logic PP. It demonstrates that you can maintain strong performance and breed health while going polled if you manage it strategically.
Okay, what about the economic barrier of the transition itself? It might feel like a big upfront investment. Maybe buying PP semen costs more, or there's a period where you're kind of losing money during the switch. How does the article frame that?
The article frames the economic transition very differently, actually. It argues that while it certainly requires strategic planning, it offers immediate returns, unlike many other genetic investments.
Immediate returns.
How? Unlike complex traits like, say, improving fertility or feed efficiency, which might require multi-generational investment before you see a tangible payoff across the herd, the simple, dominant nature of the polled gene enables that rapid phenotypic change we discussed. The payback, the article states forcefully, is immediate. The very first calf born without horns, because it came from a PP sire mating, represents a direct saving of that $17.36 in dehorning costs, plus all the associated labor and stress you avoided.
So the ROI isn't years down the line. It literally starts with the first polled calf hitting the ground from a PP sire.
That's the core argument they make on the economics of transition. And the implementation timeline itself is relatively straightforward and quick in terms of seeing those results spread through the herd. You commit to using PP sires across the board. Within approximately 9-10 months, you start seeing your first 100% polled calves being born. Within about 21 months or so, your entire calf crop being born from that point forward will be naturally hornless. That transition period where you might have both horned and polled calves needing different handling is actually minimized compared to a slow, gradual approach.
And to help producers navigate this, the article actually provides a concrete plan, doesn't it? A 90-day action plan.
Yes, it lays out a very actionable, structured, step-by-step plan to guide producers through the process of making the switch effectively.
Can you walk us through that briefly? What are the key steps?
Sure. It breaks it down into 3 30-day chunks, days 130. Assessment and planning. This first month is really about getting your house in order, both genetically and financially. The recommendation is to genomic test your breeding age females if you haven't already, to confirm their polled status, especially helpful for identifying any existing PP animals you might have, and their overall genetic merit. Crucially, they say, you need to calculate your actual current dehorning costs. Use that $17.36 baseline figure, or track your own costs even more closely, and multiply by the number of calves you typically dehorn annually. Get that real number. Then evaluate your current breeding program goals and start researching the available elite PP sires that fit your criteria. Start developing a genetic diversity strategy by looking for distantly related polled bulls from different AI studs.
Okay, get the baseline data and start looking at sire options. Makes sense. What's next?
Days 31 to 60. Sire selection and contracts. This is the decision-making phase. Based on your research, you secure contracts or semen orders with multiple AI companies to ensure you have access to those diverse, distantly related PP sires you identified. The article even lists some examples of top options available at the time, like Roddy PP, Algon PP, and Remover PP, just to show they exist. Then you develop your specific breeding protocols, which PP bulls go on, which cows or heifers based on their genetics and your goals. You should also calculate your projected return on investment, ROI, based on your herd size and those dehorning costs you calculated. And importantly, start training your staff on how to identify and manage the polled calves that will soon be arriving.
So lock in the genetics, plan the matings, project the savings, and prep the team. Got it. And the final 30 days.
Days 6190. Implementation and monitoring. This is when you actually flip the switch. You begin using the selected PP sires for all planned breedings moving forward. No more horn sires, no more PP sires if you want that immediate 100% polled result. At the same time, you establish monitoring protocols to track conception rates and breeding efficiency with the new PP sires, just to make sure everything's working smoothly. You should also document your baseline herd metrics, things like dry matter intake, DMI, milk yield, components, calving ease, so you can track any changes, positive or negative, after the full implementation. And finally, plan your genomic testing schedule for the resulting offspring, especially heifers, to confirm their PP status and use that info for future decisions.
That's a really clear, practical, step-by-step guide. It takes the big abstract idea of go 100% polled and breaks it down into manageable tasks over a typical 3-month planning cycle.
It does. And the article emphasizes why following a structured plan like this is so important. It helps ensure you capture the full benefits from the shift, you minimize potential transition risk or hiccups, and it helps align the whole process with your existing breeding cycles and management routines. You're making a calculated strategic change, not just, a hopeful leap.
So the message seems to be, the technology is here, the elite genetics are available, the success stories prove it works, and there's even a practical plan laid out for you to follow right now to make this transition happen.
That's absolutely the article's conclusion on the implementation side. The tools are there, the path is clear.
All right, let's bring it all together then.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the bottom line as the Bullvine article presents it. We need to circle back to that initial, pretty pointed question they asked. Why are you still paying to dehorn calves when you really don't have to anymore?
Yeah, and based on everything we've unpacked from this article, the costs, the genetics, the markets, the technology, the answer, in their view, should be unequivocally clear by now. You really shouldn't be.
And the economic case for making that immediate, complete transformation to 100% polled herds is presented not just as an option, but as overwhelming.
Absolutely overwhelming. That's the term they'd likely use. The article summarizes the payoff again at the end, and it's significant. You get that immediate, guaranteed $17.36 per head in direct dehorning cost savings right off the bat.
Minimum savings.
Minimum savings. You eliminate those risks of treatment complications, infections, and delayed growth associated with dehorning. You potentially gain enhanced resale values for your surplus livestock heifers, bulls, even cull cows. And you clearly position your operation to capture future premiums in those emerging, humane-focused consumer markets.
And crucially, the article argues this is all accomplished while maintaining or actually improving your herd's overall genetic merit and production performance, thanks to the quality of modern polled sires.
That's the point they hit home repeatedly. That old argument about having to sacrifice genetics to get polled, it's dead, according to this analysis. Elite polled genetics are available, they're performing at the highest levels, and they offer this massive additional benefit.
So the takeaway for producers is that those who see this convergence of factors, the economics, the genetics, the market trends, and act decisively now are going to gain a pretty significant competitive advantage.
That's the article's strong conclusion, yes. It argues these advantages, the direct cost savings, the potential market premiums, the ongoing genetic progress combined with the polled trait will compound annually. Think about it. Every year, a producer is spending that $17.36 or more per head dehorning. A competitor down the road who has gone 100% polled is pocketing that money and potentially getting more for their animals and avoiding all the hassle. That gap widens every single year.
And the flip side of that coin, what about those operations who continue on that gradual half-polled path we talked about, or just delay making the change altogether? What's the article's outlook for them?
The article is quite blunt, really. It says they will find themselves increasingly disadvantaged in the marketplace. They will continue to hemorrhage those significant dehorning costs and deal with the associated inefficiencies, while the market increasingly rewards operations that can demonstrate a 100% naturally hornless herd. They'll essentially be spending money that their competitors are saving and missing out on potential revenue opportunities that those same competitors are capturing. It puts them behind the curve.
And the article emphasizes again that you don't have to wait for some future development or try to develop this all yourself. The tools and genetics are already available today.
That's a critical point they make right at the end. The genetic tools are here right now. The elite PP sires are available from multiple sources. Genomics provides the certainty needed for planning. The proven bloodlines exist and are being successfully integrated, as shown by those success stories like Burkett Falls and Drew Home. And the market trends and potential support systems from buyers are already in play. They reiterate those genetic quality proof points again. Elite PP sires averaging over $1,100 net merit, TPI scores competing with the very best, the global sales success of bulls like Luster-P and other PP sires like Remover PP topping industry lists. The proof is there.
And the article wraps up with a very direct, personal call to action for you, the listener.
It does. It really puts the numbers back squarely in your hands. It challenges you directly to calculate your current annual dehorning costs, use their conservative $17.36 per head baseline if you don't track it precisely, or use your own number and then multiply that annual cost by the number of years you realistically see yourself operating your dairy.
Look at the lifetime cost.
Exactly. Look at that total number, which could easily be tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars over the remaining course of your career. And then ask yourself, very directly and honestly, can you truly afford not to make this change now, given the alternatives?
That's a powerful way to frame it. And the concrete next step they recommend isn't complicated either.
No, the article's final recommendation is simple and immediate. Contact your AI representative this week. Don't put it off. Start the conversation. Discuss the PP sires available that fit your breeding goals. Talk about developing that structured plan we outlined, and aim to implement 100% homozygous polled sire usage, beginning with your very next breeding cycle. Take action now.
It sounds like the revolution, as they call it in the article, is happening with or without individual producers making the choice.
That's really the article's powerful concluding message, yeah. In today's challenging dairy market, where maximizing every single ounce of operational efficiency and capturing every possible dollar of revenue is absolutely critical for survival and future success. The article argues the choice between continuously hemorrhaging money on dehorning versus capturing the comprehensive economic benefits and market premiums of going 100% polled isn't really a choice at all anymore. The revolution in polled genetics and its market acceptance is here. And the fundamental question left for each producer is whether you'll step up to lead it on your own operation, reap those benefits early, or if you'll watch from the sidelines while your competitors claim the advantages and leave you struggling with outdated costs and practices.
That really is a challenging and definitely thought-provoking conclusion from the Bullvine article. If, as they've laid out so comprehensively, adopting 100% polled genetics truly offers immediate, significant cost savings, if it unlocks enhanced market opportunities now and in the future, and if it can be done while maintaining or even improving your herd's genetic progress and production, well, what does that truly mean for the long-term sustainability, the competitiveness, and ultimately the profitability of operations that decide not to make this transition? It certainly leaves you, the listener, with something crucial to consider about where your own farm is heading in the future landscape of this rapidly changing dairy industry.
It really does. A decision with compounding impacts, positive or negative, year after year. Lots to think about there.
There you have it. The brutal economic truth about polled genetics that most producers are missing entirely. The choice between hemorrhaging money on dehorning or capturing polled premiums isn't really a choice at all. Your action step is simple. Calculate your current annual dehorning costs using that $17.36 baseline, multiply by the years remaining in your operation, and ask yourself if you can afford not to make this change. Head over to thebullvine.com to read the complete analysis, including the detailed 90-day implementation plan and real-world case studies from operations that have already made the transformation. You'll also find our comprehensive comparison tables and the specific polled sires that are dominating global rankings. If this episode challenged your thinking or helped clarify your breeding strategy, share it with fellow producers who need to hear this message. The polled revolution is happening with or without you. The only question is whether you'll lead it or watch your competitors capture the advantages you could have claimed. Thanks for joining us for the Bullvine Podcast, where we turn industry insights into immediate profits. Until next time, keep challenging the status quo and keep building better herds.